We've created a generation where any discomfort is a trauma and it should be avoided. Every time you feel scared, good. If something is scary more than it should be, that means you need to do it. This technique is called BICEP. It's brief, intentional, conscious exposure to pain.
This is the Bad Mom Podcast, Parenting the Anxious Generation.
This is so exciting, Dave Asprey. You're here at the Bad Mom Podcast, Parenting the Anxious Generation. This has been a dream of mine to have you on here. You've been such a great friend for so long and mentored me and helped me with my family and my crazy kid. You two are like peas in a pod. So I have so many things to ask you, but I just want to check in, say hi. What's happening, Dave?
You know, my 16-year-old son, Alan, is visiting me for a couple weeks here in Austin. And so we're having a ton of fun and just finding ways to get into father-son trouble and just having meaningful conversations. So it's a cool week.
As you know, the reason that I started the Bad Mom Podcast and Parenting the Anxious Generation and Project Grit, which is this whole building resilience for the next generation mental health, because we are facing such an epidemic and such a crisis with adolescent, young adult mental health issues. And you know that I've known that firsthand and have sort of seen it step by step with my own kid. And you've been such a great mentor to Zach, and I know you'll be in his life forever.
Of course.
But I mean, what do you see going on? And I was listening to your book today, your new book, Heavily Meditated, which is brilliant. And I was expecting it to just sort of be this whole like, okay, sit down and breathe. But it's really about brain. And we're talking about brains and understanding brains. And I would love for you to tell me a little bit about your journey, where you started, because I know that you are the father of biohacking because you had to learn it for yourself.
Well, I had Asperger's syndrome when I was a kid and a lot of health problems. I was on antibiotics just about every month for strep throat for years, actually for about 15 years. I had arthritis when I was 14. I had OCD and ODD, which a lot of people don't know about, oppositional defiant disorder. And if you imagine that Rage Against the Machine song, F you, I won't do what you told me, it's always playing. And if someone tells you to do something, before you can think, your body says, no, I won't. Right. And so I graduated with the highest GPA in my class, but they wouldn't let me be valedictorian because I would have had to be valedictorian for my behavior. Right.
That's one of the D's from ODD, right?
Exactly. And so we'll say I had a huge amount of anxiety, but I didn't even know it because it was omnipresent in my life. It was always there. And so I didn't think, everyone, like, I think it's supposed to hurt when you walk because it always has for me. And all the emotional, like, that's just how it is. Because especially when we're kids, we think everyone's like us. And it turns out everyone is very different. What I learned over the course of reversing my Asperger's syndrome and getting control of my biology, it's pretty amazing. I was able to, by changing the environment around me and inside of me, to get conscious control of my state, whether it's the state of my health, my body, or even my emotional state. And it was a very expensive and painful set of experiments. And when I say expensive, it was at least $500,000 to get my health back and another $2 million to reverse my age and like grow superpower kind of things. And it shouldn't have cost anywhere near that, but it's because I had to do a lot of stuff that didn't work. I just did a genetic panel. I do a lot of lab testing just because I'm curious about what's going on in there. What do we know now? We didn't know before. And it blew my mind. Because of a combination of two genes that I have, I have a 30 times higher risk of having extreme fatigue when I get sick. I was diagnosed with chronic fatigue syndrome and fibromyalgia. Oh, interesting. Would have been helpful to know what they were and why so I could reverse it with 3 supplements. And then several different genes I have give me 3 to 7 times higher risk of having autism. We know what neurotransmitter is low, we know where in the brain it's low, and we know that it's correlated with autism. That's 2 supplements, actually 3, to reverse that. If I'd have known that when I was a little kid, my life would have been very different. But I still would have had to deal with the anxiety, because guess what happens? Anxiety is necessary for you to grow. It doesn't have to be chronic, but anytime you're suffering, there's a reason for it. And it's to make you grow and improve. We've unfortunately, I don't really know why, there's all kinds of theories, and I could guess, but I don't have great science about it. Certainly screen time is part of it. But we've created a generation where any discomfort is a trauma and it should be avoided. And the problem is, if you have no pain, you have no pleasure. These are polarities, they're required.
Well, you don't have growth.
Exactly. We have stagnation. And guess what feels like absolute shit, especially to a teenager? Stagnation.
Stagnation, yeah.
Yeah, we can't stand it. Like, come on, let's do it. One of the things that I came across, and I've run a neuroscience company for 10 years called 40 Years of Zen, that helps people go in and reprogram their reactivity to the world around them. And it's mostly executives and, powerful people who come through there, because it's $20,000 in 5 days at a dedicated facility for this. But there's a lag time on reality. So a lot of times, we're thinking, oh, it's in our brain, it's in our kid's brain. It's actually in their body and then in their brain. So Vivian, if I clap my hands, then anyone listening, okay, well, I know it took a while for the sound to get to my body because I had to go through the internet and through the air, but then I heard it right away. And that's just complete nonsense. If we have electrodes glued to your head measuring your auditory cortex, the part of your brain that processes sound, it only gets the signal 1/3 of a second after it reached your body. And if you're a teenager, it gets there in 1/4 second, not 1/3 of a second. And this is one of the reasons teenagers are, by design, they're fast. And that means they're impatient, because why are all these slow old people there? Literally, for you, well, I actually still have a teenage response time in my brain because I'm a biohacker. But for most people who are over 25, we're running at 1/3 of a second delay on reality. And if you're 16 or 18, you have 1/4 second delay. And you're like, why is everyone so dumb? And you say, well, it's only 1/10 of a second. Who cares? Well, we care. And
is that why they think we're dumb?
There's other reasons. So what's really happening is your body is taking a minute, well, 1/3 of a second, to figure out how it's going to make you feel about what's happening, so you can make up a story with your logical brain that matches the feeling. And the implication here is a little bit scary. It means that riding around in your body, there's an invisible other consciousness that is not your brain that has its own agenda. And if we can figure out how to control that, or what its agenda is, you can have incredible abilities to be happy and to show up in the world the way you want. And it doesn't matter if you're doing this as a parent or as a teenager. And I figured out over the course of years what life does to stay alive. This is the operating system for all life, and that's a really big claim. Heavily Meditated just came out. It became the #1 best-selling meditation book in the country. Well, it's called Heavily Meditated. I'm a famous author, no big deal. And I'm grateful for all the readers.
You are a famous author, yes.
Thank you. It also became the #1 best-selling philosophy book in the country. And Buddhist scholars are now studying this framework I'm about to share, because it explains where the Buddhist hindrances come from, where the ego comes from, and where the 7 deadly sins come from. And it's not our brains. It's something else. It's the thing that makes all life work. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm waiting. bated breath. I need to know.
So, Vivian, these are all F words, which makes it easy to remember.
Yes.
So, something
Leave
happens.
it to you to pick all F words.
You can, it's how I roll. And by the way, these are behaviors driven by mitochondria. And if you're listening to this going, oh yeah, mitochondria, they're in the news and all. We didn't understand these until really like the late 90s. So it's relatively new science. But mitochondria, they're ancient bacteria. And we say, oh, well, 2 billion years ago, our cells, us, we harnessed them as mobile power plants. The reality is that these mitochondria found a cell. They moved in like, look, it's a mobile petri dish and we can control everything. And they do. So that's where this distributed intelligence inside you comes from. The mitochondria think you're a bag of meat. They think that you are their bag of meat and they want what they want. And they don't even like it that your brain's in there trying to interfere with them. And that's why we suffer so much. So the first thing that all life on Earth will do, when I say all life, I mean bacteria, I mean a zebra, a tree, a slime mold, or even a politician, which is a form of slime mold.
Or an alligator.
Or an alligator. There you go. First thing they're going to do is they're going to look for scary things. So fear is the first F word. And if something is scary, you need to run away from or kill or hide right now before you do anything else, before you have a chance to think. And everyone listening, at some time in your life, you leaned on a hot surface and you pulled your hand away. And you said, good thing I pulled my hand away before I got burned, right? I don't think any of us actually leaned against a hot stove and said, you know, that's pretty hot. I guess I should move my hand before I get burned. And then we moved our hand. Because if we waited that long, we would have been burned. So this is direct evidence that there's some other part of you that's doing things and you are taking credit for it, right? So that's just the local network in your hand of mitochondria and nerves, which are upstream from mitochondria in decision-making, going, better move. But we love to tell ourselves a story that we're in charge of our body. So we're like, oh yeah, I moved. You're just taking credit for stuff you didn't really do. So fear is the first thing. In non-meditators, fear takes 9 times more energy and focus than anything else. And if you meditate, it can get down to 6 times more energy. So now, this is before you get a chance to even know what's going on. Your body has already said, is it scary or not? And then the next F word comes up, which is food. And it says, eat everything, because there's been famines throughout the last 2 billion years. Just make sure you eat everything. So that means that you're going to look at it and say, can I kill it? And then, can I eat it? 1/3 of the average person's thoughts are about food. Tacos every day, all the time.
The taco stand.
Exactly. And maybe it's pizza, whatever, but we think about food a lot.
Such an interesting, because for sure, the first half of my life was thinking about food. And when I changed my focus, you know, honestly, when I started moving into contribution instead of self-obsession, everything changed. The entire conversation in my head changed. So that's so interesting. Anyway, go ahead. I want to hear about it.
You're totally right. Service to others is an amazing hack.
Complete transformation. If I wish somebody would have told me earlier, but I don't know that I would have listened to them.
Well, there might be a hack
committed to my suffering.
There's a hack for getting people to listen too.
We're going to get to that.
we will. And I was 300 pounds and I was obese. I tried working out 6 days a week for 90 minutes a day. And it just didn't work. And I did this for 18 months straight when I was 23 years old. And so I was hungry all the time. And I said, I'm just going to accept the hunger. The reality is you will not die of hunger if you don't eat for 2 months for the average person. But it feels like you're going to die if you don't have lunch. And we use language like, I'm starving. I'm going to die if I don't eat. And that's all your mitochondria trying to manipulate you into eating everything. So we have fear, then food. And then there's another F word that all life has to do to stay around forever. And Vivian, I think you might know what this one is.
Okay, you go for it.
No, you have to tell me what it is. I mean, you're smart.
So it's fear, food, fertility.
Vivian, the word was fucking, and you tried to make it fertility. Is this a G-rated podcast? I thought this was bad mom, not good mom.
Hopefully there was a lot of bad moms on here.
I'm just kidding. It is fertility, but honestly, from a mitochondrial perspective, fertility is an indicator that you are healthy and young. But man, it's a big driver, and it's bigger when you're young. And wow, that means before you get to think, your body processed, is it scary? Do I need to kill it? Can I eat it? And can I hump its leg? Okay. Yikes. This is kind of dark. Everything that you've ever done that you're ashamed of is from one of those 3 mitochondrial behaviors. And all of them happen before you can think.
Did you say anything you can be ashamed of?
Anything you've ever done that you're ashamed of was one of those 3 things.
Wow.
But it wasn't you. You just took credit for it. It was an ancient engine optimized over 2 billion years to make sure that life continues and our species continues. It's not a bad thing. It's just that it has to be lightning fast so you can respond to the tigers and the immediate threats. Because if something eats you, the game is over. So you're biased towards fear. This is why we remember criticism 10 times better than we remember praise. Like, I was just having beautiful conversations with my son and going over, childhood stuff. And he remembers all the times that it was stressful and none of the times that it was good. And if he goes back and thinks about it, he remembers the good times. But the ones that are most present are the times that are stressful. And that's good. If you remember the things that feel dangerous, then you won't do them anymore. Problem is, this bias towards safety from mitochondria mean that we can experience anxiety for a lot of reasons. And the saving grace here is there's 2 more F words in the human experience in for life. The next F word is friend. All life, except maybe politicians, supports its own species and the ecosystem around it by design, effortlessly, without thinking. So you are wired in your bones to be kind to other people. But if you are scared, hungry, and you have no love in your life, there is no energy left for you to give back to your community. And the final F word is what's in Heavily Meditated, is something that I worked out over 10 years, measuring billions and billions of data points on people's brains as they meditate. That F word is forgiveness. And people spend $20,000 to learn something called the reset process at Upgrade Labs, and I'm giving it away in Heavily Meditated because it's so powerful. It's an 8-step process that lets you go in and turn off something that causes you stress that shouldn't. And if you think about what your teachers say, what your meditation teacher says, what your therapist says, it's always the same. You have your phone. Imagine this. And you're like, hey, every time I try to do work, all these alerts from TikTok and messages and email, all these, they just keep popping up. And I'm really trying to focus and I can't focus. And they literally say, take a deep breath, swipe left on the alerts and continue to focus. Over time, it'll be less painful to swipe left. You could do that. It just seems really stupid. What if you instead went into the system settings and you went to the alerting thing and you turned off all the notifications that weren't serving you? You can do this in your body's operating system. And then the things that make you reactive as a parent or as a kid, it's not that you're managing your reactivity, you don't have it anymore. It is permanently gone. And this is the only way for us to move forward, because if you have some amount of energy every day and you pour it into fear, and that takes all of it, then, well, you got nothing left. You pour it into fear and you've turned off some of your activity, so there's some energy left. And now you're going to turn cravings and hunger into actual nourishment. And oh my gosh, if you're at the appropriate age, Now you have some energy left for your intimate relationships. And then you get to turn lust and OnlyFans into a transformative, sacred form of connection that is necessary for human life.
Yeah.
And in Heavily Meditated, I talk about all the ways to access altered states of healing. And some of them are psychedelic. There's a chapter on those. Some of them are breath work. Some of them are neurofeedback. But 20% of people report meeting God during orgasm at least once in their life. Full on, sacred, highest level spiritual experience. Now, their partners don't know because they're just laying there twitching like they always do. But they're having a deep transformative healing experience. So this belongs on our list of techniques for adults to heal at a very deep level. And what this healing I'm talking about is going in and not being reactive to things that don't serve us.
Well, and I think that turning that around specifically for young people, because what I'd love to do is give parents tools for managing themselves in situations where their kids are really struggling. I have experienced this firsthand. Yeah. It's like I've got to manage myself, which was really my biggest trick. And the biggest assistance I could ever give my son was to manage myself and my reactions and controlling what I can control and releasing the things that I couldn't control. But I think this is such an important thing for parents to be able to dialogue with kids about, and for young people to be able to figure out for themselves, because the world's really gone a little nuts. And we don't have those moments of reflection and repose unless we carve them out. They don't come naturally to us anymore.
They don't. And I've seen huge changes in you over, it's been more than a decade we've been friends. We all get our patterns for relationships and for managing stress from our parents. And our parents got them from their parents, who got them from their parents. Find anyone on the planet whose parents, grandparents, or great-grandparents didn't go through a major war or disruption.
Not mine.
Exactly, right? Or have an alcoholic great-grandparent who's spread chaos and disruption in the family line. It's a human condition. We all have this. And look, when you're 2 years old, you're going to learn how to manage stress exactly the way your parents do. And if your parents are anxious, you pick up the anxiety. It's your mitochondrial network going, I know mom isn't safe because I can feel her. And if mom thinks it's not safe, given that mom is infallible because I'm only 2, therefore I'm not safe. Therefore, I'm going to be more reactive. It's normal, it's healthy, and it's a survival thing that allows our species to continue. Unfortunately, it's also complete nonsense from an adult perspective. So Zach got some of his anxiety because you had anxiety, because your parents had anxiety, because their parents had anxiety, and because all sorts of bad stuff happens in the world sometimes. And when it happens, we don't have the tools to heal it. And Vivian, one of the people who came through 40 Years of Zen recently, named Miriam, was conceived in a concentration camp and born shortly after her parents got out of the concentration camp. And she's 90-ish when she went through 40 Years of Zen. And I can only talk about her name because she's public about this, but she said, for my entire life, I have looked for a feeling of peace. And I finally found it after 5 days of doing the reset process. That's how powerful this is. And all it is forgiveness. But forgiveness isn't a thought. It's a feeling. It's an altered state that we go into. It's a whole body altered state. And the role of forgiveness is not to say anything that happened to you or your parents, your ancestors was okay. And it's not to tell someone you forgive them. Forgiveness is just the act of going in and turning off that notification in your nervous system so that it's no longer a part of your life. It's setting down a grudge. And it gets really hard today because I talked about how you pour the amount of energy you have every day into fear, then food, then fertility, then friend, and then forgiveness. Well, if you have less energy because your environment is screwed up, because your diet is screwed up, because bright lights at night are screwing up your sleep cycle, you only had half as much energy and you had even more fear. So now there's an anxiety that comes from your cells going, I really needed zinc and I needed to sleep when it was dark and I didn't get those. So I'm physically stressed in my body and I have the normal emotional stress and I have less energy than before. So it's no wonder we get stuck on the first two F words. And this is why, for the first time in recorded history, kids are dating less. They're actually having less sex, way less sex. They're waiting longer because they're literally tapped out because anxiety is higher and energy is lower. And
well, and there are barriers to entry with socialization, right? You don't have to go out. I think that isolation is the number one issue that kids are facing because it's easier to just sit on your phone. And then you're in this complete culture of conflict culture, whatever it's called, where it's just like you're made, it's all happening for you to feel agitated so that you can become tribal. You can get on one side. I had a young person tell me the other day, it's really hard after I put my phone down to go outside and actually want to talk to people because I'm so pissed off.
It's true. And one thing that we've modeled for our kids with this kind of helicopter parenting and all is, I'm going to give up my own life and all of my own social connection so that I can take you to soccer, karate, and all these things like that, which is going to stress me out. So our kids see that parents don't have the social connection. And then we have all the screens and all the pandemic nonsense that happened where, wow, no wonder it's like the deck is stacked against them. So there is a way to fix all of this. And it comes down to recognizing there's nothing wrong with you if you're feeling huge amounts of anxiety. You have a hardware problem in your body. You're not making enough energy. And that's pretty easy. Like if your car's not working, maybe you should add some oil and look at the check engine light and, wash it and do the things you do to make a car work, right? So fix the body, at least some. And then, my body has all of these settings that aren't good. Everyone knows you get a phone, and you go through and you change all the settings so it'll actually work. When did you ever do that for your body? You never got a chance because no one ever even talks about it like this. No one teaches you how to do it. So then you walk around going, I'm so anxious. I feel like I'm going to die when I talk to a girl. Here's how to reframe that. Every time you feel scared, good. That means you need to do it. This is God putting something in front of you so that you can bless it, so that you can learn to do it. So I don't know why, but when I was about 25, maybe it's because I had Asperger's and I'm like, I'm gonna reprogram everything. I decided to go out and do every single thing that terrified me. Like I sucked at public speaking. And I remember the first time I was invited to give a talk, I was maybe 24 to 1,500 people. These were the first, we called them webmasters back then, but the first people making the internet. I was so scared, I don't remember what I said at all. I literally whited out. They laughed. I mean, I think I gave a good talk. And I was like, my God, I suck at this.
Were they laughing at you or with you?
I truly don't know.
It's okay.
I took a job in the evenings after my Silicon Valley tech job teaching at the University of California. I ended up teaching 3 or 4 nights a week for 5 years. I taught working engineers how to build the internet back when we were first building it. And I did this because I sucked. And after I taught my first class, the guy who hired me was like, maybe you shouldn't be a teacher, but let me tell you what to do. And it took me about 2 years, and I would get a standing ovation at the end of class because I just did it every night, Vivian, like relentlessly. And it scared the living crap out of me. But I did it until I was absolutely comfortable in front of an audience. And a few years later, more than a few actually, I'm going on stage for the first time at a Tony Robbins event. There's 10,000-ish people in the audience.
Lots of people.
They're supposed to play a sizzle reel to welcome me, and they don't.
Oh.
And I go to walk out on stage, and when I go to say something, Alvin and the Chipmunks start talking. Because there's a problem with the wireless microphone. And you know what my heart rate did? Nothing. I smiled, and I got a standing ovation for that talk. People loved it. Because I have turned off the alert about speaking in public. By the way, the number one fear in the US is not shark attacks. It is public speaking. And
I think it's with everybody. I think it's the world.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just have data from a study in the US. There might be other
greater fear,
something else is worse.
Greater fear of public speaking than death. That's what I've always heard. And I was for sure in that category.
Right.
100%.
And I'm not saying this to brag in the slightest. I'm just saying that if a Asperger's syndrome guy who whites out in fear in front of an audience can learn to do it, you probably can too. And at the time I said, I'm just going to do it until I'm not afraid. But I just said, all right, everything that's scary, I'm going to do it. And at this point, if something triggers me, anything on earth, I'm like, thank you. I'm going to write that down on my list. And then I'm going to do the reset process on it so that I become non-reactive. The only things that I want to be reactive to are things that actively are a risk right now. So if there's a thug or a tiger jumping out, I want my body to do its natural, keep me alive before I can think thing. The rest of the
those
time,
tigers jumping out are such a problem.
It's a common thing, right?
It's really difficult.
And the thing is, look, if you're about to fall off a cliff, your body will teach you. I used to be terrified of heights. So what I would do is I'd go to the edge of the cliff and I would look over the edge and I would just feel the fear. And I would feel it.
Yeah, and do it anyway.
Feel it. Yeah. And people talk about courage. In fact, some people, especially young people, will say, what's the opposite of fear? In fact, what do you think is the opposite of fear, Vivian?
What is the opposite of fear?
Yeah.
Well, the natural would be courage, but I bet it's a trick question. So I'm going to go with peace.
Well, there you go. That is what I would say after a lot of study. It is peace. But what courage is feeling fear and doing it anyway. And this is a necessary skill. And we've taught a lot of our kids, if you feel fear, it's the other person's fault. Blame them and don't do it. And this isn't functional behavior. It doesn't work, and it makes you weak. So if you feel fear, do it anyway. And the difficulty is that fear is there to keep you alive. So if playing tag on the freeway with cars is scary to you, it should be, because it's dumb and it will kill you. So there's some amount of discernment. If something is scary more than it should be, that means you need to do it, and you need to learn how to regulate your nervous system. And all of the altered states work, from breath work to feedback, all the things in Heavily Meditated are techniques to calm the nervous system. And you know what the scariest thing for a parent often is?
Watching your kid do something scary.
Yeah. It's seeing your child suffer.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that we've just had such a reaction to those times where you put your kid on a tractor when they were 3 years old. Or I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. One of the most impactful experiences that Zach ever had was meeting this 3-year-old girl with a machete in Africa, because, I've been to Africa 35 times. To think I've taken him 5 or 6 times. And she was just peeling a mango, where in his world that was just never, ever going to happen. And so we've really just gone so overboard in protection. And to your point, kids are they're overprotected, as Jonathan Haidt says, in the 3D world and underprotected in the digital world because we don't know what's going on there. But I think 100% really part of what we need to relearn is letting our kids struggle.
It's learning to let our kids struggle. And the problem is that, especially when our kids are young, we share an energy field with them. And something that harms our kids feels like it harms us. So if we have unresolved reactivity, then when our kids do it, we're going to say, stop, you can't do that. You might get hurt. What we really want to do as parents is we want to say, hey, if you do that, it's probably going to hurt. And when the kids, as they inevitably do, they look at you and say, I'm going to do it anyway. And then you just take a deep breath, regulate yourself and say, okay. And if it's not someone who's going to remove a limb or create permanent damage, then you let them do it. And then you celebrate when it hurts, because there is no better teacher than pain. And the best of all is I had the good advice from a wise elder and I ignored it and I got the pain. Way better than I just did it and got the pain. So just in Africa and Kenya with my daughter, she's 18, right? And they do this till they're about 24. But she's saying, well, Dad, I want to get bit on my face by mosquitoes. Can you spray some of that mosquito aerosol on my face? And I said, well, it's going to get in your eyes. So why don't you spray it on your hands and wipe it on? And she goes, Dad, I'm going to close my eyes, duh. And I thought about it. And I said, okay. And I picked up the aerosol spray to spray it on her face. And I knew she was going to start yelling and wiping her eyes and going to wash them out. It was going to hurt. But it wasn't going to blind her. It wasn't going to cause permanent damage. And when I did that, because she's 18 and she's learned some things, she paused for a second and looked at me and said, actually, maybe I'll spray it on my fingers. And I was like, good call. But I'm okay. Genuinely at my core, okay with either outcome. Because either she's learned that she can benefit from other people's suffering, which includes me spraying bug spray in my eyes when I was a teenager. But if she doesn't want to learn from that, she doesn't have to. She can learn from it herself. And the trick for any young person listening, here's what old people just want to do. We want to tell you all the stupid shit that we did that caused pain and suffering so you don't have to. And here's why being human kind of sucks. You are wired, starting at about 13, to believe that your immediate family, your parents, your siblings are the dumbest humans on earth. And there's a really good reason for that.
Oh, I want to know, because that is so true. Why is that?
If you want to know, you can either look at British royalty or West Virginia.
Or where?
West Virginia. Here's why.
They're closely connected.
Very closely connected. When humans inbreed, it takes about 2.5 generations for all of us to have complete breakdown of our health and our mental abilities. So if at the time when your hormones turn on and you start entering your fertile years, which is around 13 or 14 usually, if your parents and your siblings are not stupid, you will stay in your small tribe and you'll reproduce. And our tribes of 150 people max in Africa would all be full of inbred people, and it'd be the end of the human race. So your parents are so dumb and so wrong that you cannot stand them to the point that you're willing to risk getting eaten by a tiger to go to the next tribe so that you can reproduce with someone who's not your immediate family. And this is beneficial and good. And I've told my kids this since they were 5. So just yesterday I talked with my son. I'm like, see, you're 16. Remember when I told you I was going to be the dumbest human on earth? It's happening right now. And he goes, Dad, it's not fair. Because what if you really are the dumbest person on earth, but you already told me about that, so you took away the power? I'm like, well, either way, I'm pretty sure I'm the dumbest person on earth right now. Right? And it's like, huh. And so it's okay. Like, you're not going to listen to your parents. Mother Nature does not want to let you listen to your parents. But you can overcome that, or you do what all teenagers do when things are healthy. Listen to other adults. This is why only talking to people your age is the stupidest thing you can do as a teenager. Because you're going to ask about dating from another 17-year-old. 17-year-olds don't know how to date, right? Because every adult now was 17 and we all did the stupid stuff that you and your friends are all doing, because that's what all humans do unless we have good guidance, right? So all you have to do is take some deep breaths and realize the feeling that you know, all the things you know, it's not real. You can't know all those things because you don't have enough experience and your prefrontal cortex isn't even done baking. So you feel certain, but when you think about it, that there's probably people who are more experts than you. So all you have to do is just set your ego aside a little bit and ask someone who's 25 or 35, or better yet, 55 or 105. Older is better. And be like, hey, you've probably suffered a lot in your life. You sure look like it. Look how old you are. Tell me something that I'm doing that's dumb, right? I mean, we used to have the wise elders because we were in these small things. And so you have your grandparents and they're honored, or even someone else's grandparents. You help the little lady across the street. And then you have like 2 or 3 generations and you sit around the campfire, and we have lost our elders.
Yeah.
And if you have the opportunity as a young person to make friends with someone older, we are so ready to help. And the only reason I'm sitting here today is I was desperate in my early 20s because my health was so bad. A friend said, you should go to this weird group that meets near Stanford University. It's a longevity group. We actually called it anti-aging back then. So I show up, early 20s. Everyone there is 60, 70, 80, and 90. And I'm like, oh my God, what they're teaching me is fixing my health. And I realized the things that make old people young make young people powerful. So
say that again. The things
that make old people young make young people powerful.
Wow.
So
that is
I
so
got
good.
mentored by people in their 80s when I'm in my 20s. And the stuff I've done in my life doesn't even make sense when I step back. I created the biohacking movement. It's about a $36 billion industry, and I changed how we talk about health. And I've done almost $1 billion in revenue in companies that I started over their lifetime. And I have 9 companies now and 4 New York Times bestsellers and this big conference on biohacking. And like, this goes on and on. I could brag all day. I only got to do that because in my 20s, I was so desperate that people in their 80s told me how life works. So I did my apprenticeship in longevity 25 years ago because I had the diseases of aging when I was in my 20s. And it sucked, and it was the biggest gift ever. So literally free advice from people who spent years suffering, and they'll just tell you because it brings them joy to not see you suffer. And I've seen statistics, the number of people under 30 who don't even talk to someone in their 50s, even once a month. What?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, because I think that's a particular personality trait to say, I'm going to open up and listen here, especially in my experience, because, these kids today, they sure don't trust older people because A, we never did when we were young, and B, they have some good reason for it. But what is that mindset? Like, if sitting here, if I were a parent, which I am, but was in a position where I wanted to just tell my kid, okay, I know you think I'm an idiot because biologically you're trained to do that, as we just learned, so that you can move as far away from this gene pool as possible. But what would you tell your kid that would get them out of the mistrust and into a place where they seek that listening? They seek that mentorship.
Oh, Vivian, stop it. You think you're going to tell your kids anything?
Well, that's what I want to know.
You're the dumbest person on earth from your kid's perspective. How old is Zach now? He's like 22?
He just turned 23.
23, okay. So he has 1 or 2 more years before his prefrontal cortex is done forming. And at that point, you might know a few things. And I think it was Mark Twain who said that, I'm amazed at how dumb my parents were when I was 16 and how suddenly they got so much smarter when I was 24.
Right.
So it's a recipe for frustration for parents to think that you're going to tell your kids stuff and they're going to listen. They might. You still should tell them. And you want to give your kids the sensation that, yes, even though you provide boundaries that they hate, that you have their best interests and their heart at the very core of what you do. And you recognize they may not like it, but that's the way it is. And if they don't like it, they should probably get a job and become independent so they can have full control of their life. And until they do that, you're in charge. And that's how it is. And they don't have to like it, but still you're in charge. So that can be really stressful as a parent, but that's how it is. And then what you can do is you go to the other people that are in your kid's life, the other adults, the ones they listen to, and you say, hey, can you help me out? And I don't know, I'm just going to say, you can edit this part out if you want to, but you and Mike called me like, hey, can you chat with Zach? He likes you. And I'm like, dude, of course. I totally want to talk to Zach. He's an amazing kid. Like, I want to, like, let's do this. So Zach's going to tell me stuff. He's not going to tell you because you're his parents, right? And he's going to listen to things I say because I'm not his parent. So here's the thing for parents. Find other parents, the cool ones, and ask for their help. And just do a swap. Their kids will listen to you. Your kids will listen to them. And our job is to package wisdom that helps our kids in a way that they'll absorb it. And it's probably not going to be us telling them. They'll copy what we do. And occasionally they'll ask for help. And one of the most beautiful conversations I had with one of my kids, I'm not going to say which one, just out of privacy, was there was a relationship issue going on with the kid. I'm going to make this very vague, so there's no disclosure of anything. And some feelings of betrayal, which is really common in kids and friend groups and all that kind of stuff. And so well, let's do the reset process, right? Which is, let's let go of that grudge. Let's forgive the other person, not by thinking about it, but by feeling about it. And then let's forgive ourselves for our own role in it. And of course, it results in tears and in a major release, and it reframes the entire situation. And afterwards, there's a question, Dad, how do you know all this stuff? Like why doesn't any? And I'm like, well, here's how I know: lots of suffering. Right? That's it. So I was lucky that one of my kids felt safe enough to come to me and ask a question. But understand, if they do or don't do that, it's not a reflection on you as a parent. This is biology, and it's biology before they can think. And it's okay. Just help them have a trusted network of other adults. Get them a therapist. Get them a coach. Put them on a team where there's a good coach who understands this kind of stuff. And that's what you do. Kids listen to other kids, and they listen to other adults, not you.
Well, I think that what I admire about you, and I think you have so much to bring to this young generation, is that you do talk about these things that are going on in their brain and how they can hack their own health and what it feels like to be neurodivergent. I mean, you're bringing a lot of truth and real life anecdotes about that. And I think that I'd love to have you back on and just talk specifically about that, about your experience being neurodivergent, because I have a theory, and it's not backed up by anything, but I just think all of the overstimulation that kids are getting in the digital arena at such a young age, is messing with their dopamine. We know that. That's a fact. But I also think that it's stimulating and worsening some of that neurodivergence and anxiety. Of course, anxiety, depression, et cetera. But if you're weird to begin with, and now you're overdosed on all of this stimulation, I think that you have a lot to say about that, and a lot about how to manage that in this very, very stimulated world.
There's one trick, one hack from Heavily Meditated that I think I could share before we run out of time. And it's a really important one. And I'll just say, read Heavily Meditated. It's not going to change my life. If anyone listening does or doesn't buy the book, that's not why I write them. It's not a book that's going to tell you to go meditate. It's a book that says meditation isn't very fast or effective. Here's a lot of things you can do that accelerate it dramatically so you don't have to spend 2 hours a day meditating. Because frankly, if you're a teenager or a young adult, you'd rather spend 2 hours doing something more fun. So like, let's get the work done in the least amount of time. But this technique is called BICEP, and it's specific to dopamine. And BICEP is not this kind of bicep on your arm. It's brief, intentional, conscious exposure to pain. Now, some people are already triggered going, oh, pain. Pain is a teacher. But here's the thing. Monks used to whip themselves. They'd flog themselves. And I asked my teacher in 7th grade when I heard about it, why do they do that? Because they're such sinners. That's not why they do it. And then, oh, yogis, they lay on beds of nails. Why would they do that? To show what good yogis they are. Because yogis are into competitions, right? Not how it works. Well, the reason that these different practices did it, and even why there's some more extreme things, like in Native American traditions, the sun dancers, they're doing piercings and sometimes branding, right? Or in Texas, we just eat huge amounts of jalapenos. Or if you're a biohacker, you sit in ice water for 2 minutes and go, this sucks. What that does, 1 minute, not more than 3, of intentional pain that doesn't cause damage, resets your dopamine receptors. So it takes 250% less dopamine to activate them. And the role of dopamine is to motivate you to do things that matter. It doesn't, unfortunately, reward you for getting results. It only rewards you for working towards things that matter. So if your dopamine is already cooked from social media and your receptors are not sensitive to it, it's really hard to get motivated because like, oh, I just can't do it. So then you sit in ice water for 3 minutes or lay on a spiky mat, which you can buy for $20. And you do that for 1 minute. And then all of a sudden for the rest of the day, everything is easy.
Wow, that is so minor, but enormous, because I live in a world of watching these young people, and the lack of motivation is just so startling. So if they're just scrolling, and now I can see even with my kid where he's done being unmotivated, but he's got to figure out that bridge from there to getting into gear. That just like simple, stick your face in a bowl of ice. I know you told me that one day and it changed my life. Or, take that cold shower. Or I love it. What is this $20 mat you can get that's spiky?
They call it an acupressure mat or a spiky mat. They sell them on Amazon, little plastic spikes. You just lay on it. And when you first lay down, when you take your shirt off, you lay on it
so
on your back. You're like,
important.
oh, this really hurts. Oh. And then your body's freaking out. And then you go, wait a minute. It's not hurting me in any way. It's just a little bit uncomfortable. And the body will tell you to get off. And when you tell the body to do it anyway, the body calms down. And when the body calms down, it resets everything for the day. And this works. And we've all seen former addicts covered in tattoos and piercings, right? In fact, how many addicts does anyone know who don't have a tattoo? The reason they're doing it is tattoos hurt. So they get a tattoo and then they can regulate their dopamine and they don't have cravings to go back to it. They're just trying to manage dopamine. And there's a bunch of things around improving sleep, things around supplements to get your dopamine back on track, right? But a lot of times when kids are getting into vaping, it's a dopamine thing, like don't vape. You can use small amounts of nicotine if you want to. Just do it with a lozenge where it's not going to kill you. But dopamine is front and center. And after dopamine is testosterone for men and women. And right now, testosterone increases dopamine. And testosterone, because of that, it makes you motivated to do things that matter like dopamine does. So since everyone is low T right now, like our young men have testosterone levels of our grandparents from when I was a teenager. So you got to get your testosterone up so your dopamine will go up. And all of a sudden then it doesn't take much internal motivation or willpower to finish the task or to ask that girl out or to ask that boy out, whatever the thing is, because women need testosterone too. Like it goes that way. So that's where it comes out. It's not you, it's your hardware. And then it's your programming. This book tells you how to reprogram yourself. Biohacking tells you how to fix your hardware. And after that, you're going to like what you find in there.
Yeah, no, I admire you so much, Dave. Not just because you have so many bestseller books and you changed the world in so many ways, but you're kind and you're super generous with your knowledge and your wisdom. And I can't even tell you how grateful I am that you have supported my kid, Mike, myself, and were that mentor who just showed up and kept raising your hand, even though you were leading a crazy busy life. And I think your voice needs to be heard with the young people for sure. So thank you so much. And I hope you'll come back on.
Of course, Vivian. I appreciate you and Mike so much. I mean, you've done so much in Africa. You've been giving back for a long time to the world. And Mike is one of the most helpful giving guys I've ever met, his highest energy. And he's been on my show talking about how his experience with cancer and nearly dying gave him this motivation and this power. So you're good people. And I'm grateful to count you as friends. And of course, I'm going to help you on this because what you're doing with Bad Mom is critically important right now.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much, Uncle Dave.
You got it.